So, wow. It's been 10 months. I'm not gonna lie, this month for me went very slowly. Maybe it's because there was just a lot of days where nothing really exciting happened. However, I will try my best to recap some of the major moments that happened in this 10th month on hormone therapy. Well, I guess I'll just start at the beginning. So, I may have mentioned this in the last video, but the 4th of July. It's always been a family tradition that we go camping during that weekend. Because of work schedules, I've been unable to do this for several years. This year, though, it actually landed on a weekend, so I was able to have 3 whole days. Here, I was able to come out to 2 of my cousins. Cousins I only maybe see once or twice a year if I'm lucky, so they were really the main ones I had to tell. They're rather guided by faith, so I was a little scared as to how they were going to take this. Crazy thing was, one of these cousins was subbed to my channel. He took me aside and said, I know. And I'm like, oh, well, this makes it easier then. Do you have any questions? And so there was a few we kind of talked about a little bit. There's only really so far I can go with it. Like, I find it's a lot easier to tell people my life story if they're a complete stranger, but if there's somebody I know and that I'm expected to be with for a very long time, well, it's just going to be kind of awkward to be able to tell the story. The other one didn't know. I just had to straight up tell him. But the thing I find weird is they told me I was not the first transgender person in their life, which I found that to be very reassuring. They kind of ended with this idea of, well, I don't agree with you on a philosophical level, but if it makes you happy, then I don't care as much. And they ended the conversation with, well, it's a pleasure to meet you, Julia. I'm just kind of like, I'm still me. I mean, I'm going to look a little different. I'm going to have different names and pronouns, but it's still me for the most part. So that was over the 4th of July weekend. I wanted to tell other relatives as well, but I just couldn't really find the time. All of them were just really enthralled talking about the political unrest and all this COVID shenanigans. And on top of that, it's just a hard thing to introduce to people. It's not like you can go, oh yeah, speaking of which, or oh, I know one. Who? Me. That's just, there's no segue. You just have to jump in and say, I'm transgender. And then you just have to be willing to accept the consequences and probably answer a million questions. Or at least I'm used to the idea of answering a million questions. Most of the time when I tell people, they're just kind of too shocked to say anything. Oh, you have any questions? No. You sure? No questions. Okay. And then the other big thing is that it is official at the company that my name is Julia and I am transgender. There was a big memo that was published this month so that most of the people in the building know who I am. It doesn't really make sense to tell everybody since I don't really meet everybody on a daily basis, but it got the job done. I will admit, at first, a lot of people were just kind of like, hey, hi. But now they're more just kind of like, oh, hey, Julia. And just like, it worked. They know who I am. I'm a girl. And that just makes me happy. I will admit the bathroom situation is a little confusing. Well, actually, that is another talking point right there. So then, I work in IT, primarily for the school system. Now, in the summertime, none of the kids are at school. It's mostly the cleaning staff. And what we do is we just go around and make sure that all the equipment in these schools is working just fine. There's a few times I not only built up the bravery to wear girl shorts. The shirt has to be one of the company shirts. They have to know who we are. But the shorts can be anything. I wore girl shorts. And nobody cared. And then even on top of that, there's a few times I built up the bravery to use the girls' room. I mean, sure, I wanted to make sure nobody was around when I did it, but it still feels like a victory. So we had a birthday party with one of my more recent acquaintances. They rather recently came out as non-binary, so I try my best to refer to them as they, but I did kind of know them briefly so every time I say the wrong pronoun, it's like that one moment you bite your cheek on the side. And then it just gets a little more painful every time you do it afterwards. The whole time they keep reassuring me it's okay, and I'm just like, come on, you were able to latch onto this she thing really well when you knew me as he before. I'm getting off topic. So, went to a birthday party with them, where we had some guests I were not familiar with. And the crazy thing is, some of these guests were also trans femme, just like me. It was nice. This was honestly the first time I've ever really met anybody from the transgender community. I will admit, there was this one girl in, was it junior high or high school? I forget which, but I remember they started as a boy going in, and then they disappeared for several months and then came back as a girl. I never really had much of a chance to talk to them because I couldn't tell if she was real or if she just was wearing everything in drag. And plus, at that time, I didn't really know what transgender meant. I will admit I was a little jealous of them, but that was about it. But other than her, I met nobody else in the transgender community. So it was kind of nice to see others. In fact, the thing I find kind of crazy is both of these trans femme people they were actually a couple, and they were very sweet together. It gave me hope that maybe I can find love someday. We exchanged Discord accounts, and we've been talking back and forth ever since. The main thing I'm always curious about, if ever I meet anybody else that's transgender, when did you realize it? And the other one is, how did you pick your name? I always feel like those are the two biggest things. I mean, there's more, but if I'm just meeting somebody for the first time, I'm not going to be like, yeah, you have any tricks for shaving legs? Because whenever I do it, I either end up like a strawberry or just blood streaks everywhere. Hey, do you know how much longer on hormone replacement therapy it'll be before I can actually have a chest that protrudes out? Stuff like that. Those are the questions I would love to ask, but come on, you're not just going to ask a random stranger that out on the street. And after talking back and forth with them, they introduced me to a Discord community of other people of the LGBTQ of the, let's see, it seems like there's so many more acronyms these days. The LGBTQI now? Okay, that particular strand, there's people in this Discord that are exclusively part of that community. I'll just leave it at that. Another big thing. So, I think I've made an illusion a few times that the doctor I'm seeing about transitioning, their office is about an hour away from where I was, so the idea of having telemedicine online really made it a lot easier, since I didn't have to take a whole day off to go to the appointment and back. However, they wanted to have one appointment in person. I had a few vacation days built up, so I did it. And on top of that, I also had a little plans. Basically, while I was out there are a few friends I have out there, and I wanted to see if they wanted to do lunch. And it turns out one of them was free, so I had lunch afterwards. But let's see, the doctor's visit itself. It was kind of nice to actually see the doctor in person. In the waiting room, I was kind of hoping to maybe run into somebody else. There was one person there briefly, but they barely spoke English, so we just kind of sat there awkwardly. But went in, and it seemed like the standard appointment. Basically, just wanted to check my levels, my weight, and everything else. The only thing that really stuck out to me is that, She wanted to get my heartbeat, so I lifted up my shirt to get a better view, and the whole time she was just amazed as to how well developed my breasts were, which I'm pretty happy about that because, quite frankly, I feel like I'm kind of small at this point. But I guess it's still pretty early on, so all in good time. So after the appointment, I had lunch, and it was kind of interesting. Basically, everybody that knows me knows I'm transgender, so if we're just kind of sitting there for a meal or something, there's always going to be this discussion of gender going around, and, well, I'd rather like that conversation. And then the last thing to mention as well, I'm not really sure how many people would think about this. So, everybody who got their vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine, got a little card. Usually I've been taking a copy of it, and then I made it a pin that I put up right here so everybody will know why I'm not wearing a mask. After doing this for a while, though, I realized it's just kind of outing myself because it still has my old name on it. So I talked to the doctor about this, and I'm like, is there a way I can change it? And for those of you that may be having this same issue, it seems like it's perfectly fine just to write over it. This little card is just for your reference. It's already filed under your medical paperwork, and the name it would be under would be changed as soon as your name was changed anyway. So that was kind of a bit of a relief. Although I gotta find some whiteout so I can actually do that, as well as make it more convincing. As for the effects of the hormones, well, I'm very much a do-it-yourself kind of woman. The main thing is the oil in my car needed changing, so I went over to my parents' place who has all the proper equipment. I bought the oil and the filter and everything and went to it. The plug that was holding the oil pan, I could not get off for anything. So I had to ask my dad for help. He just went under there and just went. And that was the first time I started to notice I'm losing muscle mass. Either that or it was just really locked in there. But it was just one of those moments. I'm like, I guess I need to up my exercise routine. Because I've probably mentioned this in other videos, but even as a woman, I do not want to be seen as weak. I want to be seen as strong. And the idea that if I'm not able to lift just makes me feel rather weak. And the idea that I wasn't able to do this just kind of made me feel like I was worthless almost. But at the same time, it is kind of a sign that the hormones are working their magic. And that's another thing as well. I've talked back and forth with these two transgender individuals, and oftentimes it feels like I'm not seeing any progress. I used to take pictures of my face once a week to see if I would see anything. And I basically stopped doing that because all I just noticed is my hair was just getting a little more poofier each time. So I figured maybe it's easier to see on the outside. So I showed both of them a before picture and the after picture, and they're like, whoa, that is a major difference. Okay. It's because I see this face every day. I've grown accustomed to it. I can't really see the subtle changes going on. And plus, this was seeing the span of over 9 months, so there would definitely be a lot more change than week 1 to week 2. And then the only other thing I've noticed is the hair growth in some capacity. So, hopefully this won't be too uncomfortable. I'm going to get a little closer to the camera here to try to show this. So, on a whim, I just kind of lifted up my hairline. So the main thing is, the hairline you'll always see kind of went around like that. But you'll notice there's like a few little tufts growing here and there. So it's like the hairline is kind of growing out a little more. Which I'd say is pretty nice. I mean, by the end of this, I want to have long flowing hair. In fact, even just having the hair now, it's kind of fun to do this and see the hair swish around. So with this extra longer hair, it's like I almost have a pillow built into my head now. So the hair is really bunching up at the back of the neck. So when I lie back a lot, it kind of pushes on it, and it's almost kind of cushiony. Maybe that kind of speaks to the power of the shampoo and conditioner I'm doing. In fact, there's even a few times I'll get kind of close to something and I'll feel the hair kind of brush up to the side of my head, and even that feels kind of comfortable. It's like I've got like a giant pillow wrapped around my head. It's fun. I wish I could have done this sooner. Not only have longer hair, but to start transitioning. I think that's it. I mean, if there's anything else you're curious about, feel free to leave a comment. I will mention I always try to leave out the more explicit stuff as I want these videos to be more for a general audience. But if there's anything more explicit that you want to know, just start off the comment with NSFW. That way there's a little bit of a warning for those that don't want to get into explicit material. Well, till next time, be yourself, no matter who that is.